Hey, great to be here again today. I am Beau Higgins, the host of our MilVet Podcast, and I am fortunate today to be joined by Kevin Cornish, the CEO of Moth and Flame, and he is going to share a little bit about his journey today, share about a little bit about the platform that he has helped built, and maybe even educate me as a Marine that maybe not the brightest guy in the world on virtual reality and how that can be utilized. So. Kevin, first and foremost, welcome to the show, the podcast, and would love to hear a little bit of an intro about you.
Yeah, thanks, Bo. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat today, and really just appreciate everything that you guys do. It's just a very fascinating time in the world and in technology. Um, we're in a period of just massive disruption in so many ways, but AI being one of them, of course. And that from a startup perspective, we look out at that, and what we see is chaos. And from in building a business, now it's like we look out and we see the same thing we see when we look in. And but it's also, there's a rush to thriving on chaos, and within chaos there's a lot of opportunity. So very interesting time to be alive, and looking forward to this chat.
No, that's awesome. And we always talked about that. The best Marines were the ones that were comfortable in chaos because when you're out there on the battlefield, you never know how things are going to go. So, sounds like you have gotten comfortable in chaos, at least somewhat comfortable in chaos in the AI VR world, and hopefully, again, can make us a little smarter on how you did that and how you got to where you are. I'd love to kind of start. I say start from the beginning, but I mean, how did you get initially involved in this technology? I mean, it's something that's, I guess, been around now for a while. It's still a little scary, I think, to myself who hasn't maybe fully embraced the AI world or the VR world. So, I'm putting a toe in the water, but would love to hear kind of how you made the leap into tech, or kind of, what are the building blocks to get to where you are today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'll talk about it a little bit from the career journey that I had, which was when I got out of college, I wanted to make movies. So I went to Los Angeles. I got a job in a talent agency, working in the mailroom, and just kind of worked myself way up through that industry. And I got to a place, and I was kind of in my 30s, and it was a place where uh, it was time for me to do something that was significant for me. And I was kind of looking around at like what are opportunities, and there was some wisdom somebody had shared of like, find the thing that you can be the best in the world at. And that always like stuck in my mind of like, what is that thing. And there was a moment about 10 years ago, um, where Facebook bought Oculus, and the first demos were starting to come out. And it was something where there was just, this is a very transformative technology. Um, and you would see the demos and you would see people's responses to them, and you could tell people's minds were being blown. And I watched one of them, and I was like, I could do this. I could make this. And so I set my mind to, I'm going to be the best virtual reality director in the world. And the amazing thing about this was that very soon after I started to do that, what I realized was that what I actually needed was to have the best virtual reality team in the world. And that the technology was so much bigger than anything that one person could do. And there was something fascinating about the technology because it was the blend of media and software. And so there's this idea of, you watch a movie, you go to a movie on a Friday night, that movie is going to be the same forever. But then all of a sudden, well, what happens if that movie is different every time anybody watches it? Like that creates a whole bunch of opportunities. And then we started making them, and then really kind of had this thought of what would it be like if you could talk to the characters in a movie and that they cared about what you had to say, and the movie changed based on the things you said and the way that you interacted. And that little idea was really where it was all born from. And then we just built on that and just took something simple, added a little bit, added a little bit more, added a little bit more, and had no idea what the business was going to be. We knew the technology was really powerful, and we knew there was something magnetic about it because it was attracting great people to come work on this project. And then Accenture saw it, and they said, we think this could be really valuable for workforce training. Let's make something for foster care. And we made something that was, you go into a house where there's been rumors of abuse, and you're going to have a conversation with a mom, a conversation with a boyfriend, a conversation with a little girl, and you got to come to a conclusion based on your own judgment, whether you believe these rumors or not. And we would have people go through it, and the arguments people had coming out of it were incredible, because one person would see it and they'd say, we got to take the kid. And another person would say, no, there's love in that house. This kid needs to stay with their family. And you would watch these two people argue. And there was something that I learned working with Netflix. And one of the most incredible departments at Netflix is the user testing group. And what they do is they bring people in from all over the country and watch them watch TV and then talk to them about it. And they know what the hits are going to be better than anybody else at the company. And what they know is that when people are passionate, something's working. Now, it might be that they're passionate for, or they might be passionate against, but the fact that there's passion means the thing is hitting a nerve. And we saw that with foster care. And it was this was about 2019. I was at South by Southwest. It was up for the Innovation Award there, and there was a seminar, and there's some guys wearing T-shirts that said AF Works. I said, so what is AF Works? And the guy's like, well, it's actually AF Works, but sure. And we started talking, and he said, yeah, virtual reality is really important to us. We've been doing a lot of tests, and we see a lot of value in it. They had just done undergraduate pilot training next, where they put the first class of trainees through in virtual reality. And the goal there was, can we cut a 13-month undergraduate pilot training program down to 6 months? And they put them through in virtual reality, and it worked. So they said, we're gonna do this for a bunch of other stuff. If you're interested, we've got a bunch of pilots coming to our campus next week. If you want to come down. And a week later, I was down in Las Vegas in a room with 20 pilots, listening to the problems that they had and how virtual reality could solve those. And we were on our first contract in 90 days. And since then we've had the good fortune and honor to deliver trainings to tens of thousands of service members across every branch. And the one that we're really most excited and most proud of is the suicide prevention program. And this is one where you think about all the things that you do, whatever your career field, whatever your skills are, you practice them, and you practice them again and again. And every time you do them, you get better. And then you think about a suicide prevention. What does it really mean to have that conversation on a Saturday night when somebody's totally lost? And you might only have that conversation once, but that one time that you have it, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Yeah.
And how do we train for that? We put people in a room and let them fall asleep watching a PowerPoint once a year.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, what if we treat this the way that we train for everything else? Give people a chance to get reps and sets. Give people a chance to actually go into that moment, speak those words, and have that experience, fail, learn, get better. And it's been really, really incredible to see that.
That's amazing, and I'm gonna, I am admittedly somewhat of a Luddite when it comes to technology, so this is great stuff for me to learn as well. And my first thought when you're talking about interactive movies or having that two-way dialogue, it reminds me of being a dad with my young daughter who's now getting ready to get married. We had those books you could read, right? That said, to have this outcome, go to page one, two, like so.
Yeah.
I mean, she loved those. I think these are cool because you don't know how it's going to go. You can pick the story going your own way, but obviously it's come a long way since going from the books, the pages in the books to where you are now. I do have one question for you, certainly, because I mean, I went through, I mean, we've all been through online training, some horrible, and just, you're right, it's just PowerPoint and you really don't get much out of it. But even some of the computer based training that is a little more interactive, and again, 25 years in the Marine Corps, we had a lot of training modules we did. And I'm thinking in particular, some of the things we did there were cultural based trainings, right? How do you deal with this situation in Iraq or Afghanistan and people and culture? But the one thing, and I guess I'll be curious of your take, and not that I'm saying it doesn't work by any means, but the one thing you can't simulate is the stress of the situation, right? When you're actually there, and maybe I'd love to hear your take on this. I feel like when you're in the village, and there's a little bit of like like this, your hair is sticking up on edge. I mean, how do you? Can you? I get the fact there's goodness in just practice, right? If you know the best way to interact, you can keep the situation hopefully under wraps. But certainly you have to do that, I would think. Plus, you have to do real training too. I get that, but do you feel like people can oh, it's only a video. I'm gonna click till I get the right answer. Again, devil's advocate
Yeah.
in some ways, but I mean, how do you deal with that or talk about that or kind of work through that?
Well, I think this is the challenge of any training pipeline, right? You want to you want training to be as close to the real world as possible. You want to practice how you play. Except the challenge is it can be very expensive to truly recreate what that operational environment is going to be, whatever that skill set is that somebody needs to deploy. And that becomes cost prohibitive at scale. And so at the super high end, so take pilot training, for example, F-16 pilots have the good fortune of having $20 million simulators that they can go in. They can give them an incredibly high fidelity simulation of what, and even that doesn't really have the G's of being and the pressure that's being put on your body. But virtual reality will never match that at the highest fidelity. But there's 500 other career fields where they don't have $20 million simulators, or if they do, they don't have a lot of access to them. You think about the simulators for the Bradleys that you get it. Maybe you get in there once in a while, but there's certainly bottlenecking and it's a huge cost and time commitment to get everybody through there. So these are kind of some of the places where the fallback becomes just a PowerPoint. And so when you start getting a little bit of scale, your quality drop off is massive. And that's where virtual reality can fill a great gap, because it's like you said, there's no way to recreate what that fully kinetic experience is going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can create training experiences at very low cost that are very scalable, that give somebody a good chance to go through and get some reps and sets.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, there's clearly a high value to it. I think, I mean, all the training we did in the military, right? You start off with something in the classroom and you talk about it, and then you probably, maybe you walk it first, or, it's like, plays in football. You have the playbook, and first maybe you walk it, then you go to half speed, then you go to three-quarter speed, then you go full speed. But if you can, get enough of those reps and sets, in a cheap way, in a fast way, in an easy deliverable way at home, or, not when you're time constrained either. If you can do it on your own, that's got to be huge. I'm sure. And then, but yeah, obviously nothing can replace the real world, training scenarios. And then obviously going out and trying to do it yourself. But I think you're right. If you've practiced it enough, you have that muscle memory, right? That you know how to react, and it's not the first time that you're seeing something. You're like, oh yeah, we dealt with this before. These are things I should think about. I mean, it's always going to be a little different. I get that, but even if it's a 90% solution, that makes the real training, I mean, that much better. Obviously, it can really leverage the leverage of the experience you have on the back end for sure. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then especially when you think about the new demographic coming into the service, and they haven't been in a operational environment yet. How do you get that person spun up as fast as possible? So that's another place where there's just a great opportunity. I think that with something that we've seen with virtual reality, we do a lot on aircraft maintenance. And there was an Air Force business case analysis, and the numbers that came out of that were 400% increase in training output, 50% reduction in training time, 20% reduction in training costs. So there's real ROI with the technology that's a lot of customers are really getting awesome value from, which is great to see.
And I'm thinking of training probably in a very dated way, and I will admit that it's more like, scenario on a computer, and you have, hey, do you pick option A, option B, option C? I'm sure these days, and I have to believe you're putting on something that's more immersive, right, where you can actually turn a wrench or turn. I mean, it's got to be much better than that. 'Cause I mean, I got out of the Marine Corps 10 years ago, and maybe we had something back then, but nothing like, I can only imagine what's out there today. And I'm sure my kids are playing it on video games, and I have no clue about it. That's my thought is, how do you know how hard to torque something, or how hard to, but I guess that can all be, it's all built in, and you have like, is that what, I mean, I assume that's what it is. I have no idea really, but yeah.
Yeah, it recreates a real environment. There's something, the learning process is all about retention, right? And there's something with virtual reality where when you see something on a screen, your mind catalogs that in a place where it goes with other things that it saw on a screen. When you're in virtual reality, you're looking at a screen that doesn't have any edges. And the result is your mind remembers it as something you did. And because of that, and when you think about kind of learning retention related to the quantity of neurons stimulated during the experience that you're trying to remember, there's orders of magnitude more happening in virtual reality, just at a neurological level.
That's awesome. No, I feel like I'm behind the times. I need to go out there and find some of these simulators. I always see them. I go to like Soffic, at Soft Week, and they have all these toys and things. I never get in them. I got to go check it out. All the guys seem to think they're
you got to
pretty
get
awesome.
in there.
Yeah. I'll be there. I live in Tampa usually, so I try to get by there every year and check it out. I haven't gone on the. I'm sure they're amazing. I'm missing out for sure. Well, how'd you? I mean, I tell so you met, you kind of connected with the military piece at AF or at South by Southwest, and AFWorks was your foot in. You're supporting all DoD now. I mean, who's your primary customers now with Moth and Flame? Are you all defense now? Or are you just you're open? So take what you get, or kind of what's your main focus these days?
Yeah, so we have programs going in the Air Force, Army, Navy, in Tampa as well, and then on the corporate side, we've got a great partnership with Accenture, um, and a number of other corporate partners like Wellstar Healthcare System based out of Georgia Pacific, um, and a number of others. So
A little bit of
we're
everything.
really seeing a lot of people being able to see value
Yeah,
from it.
it sounds like there's a lot of new use cases that probably haven't even been thought up yet. I mean, that seems to be, and I guess that's probably one of the neatest parts about being in this world is that I mean, is your take we're at the very like tip of the iceberg right now? There's just so much more. I mean, what I mean, like what's next? Like I'm curious. Like what do you see? What's the next step in the evolution of this technology, and where does it go from here? How does it become more, almost like more? I say accept is the wrong word, but like my mom has never seen. Like, how do we get more people exposed to it? Because it seems to, again, I think it's scary for people like, oh, AI, virtual reality. I don't know. I mean, how do we? What's next? Yeah.
Well, I think when you ask the question, "What's next?" what's really fascinating is the data, um, because what you're the data that's coming out of it is, there's it's what did somebody say, what did somebody do when they're, and what you're seeing is critical decision making.
Hmm.
That there's an objective record of how did somebody make a decision under pressure, and what decision did they make. So in the suicide prevention, as an example, you are making a decision to leave the person alone or get the person to safety. And that seems like an obvious thing. If you had a choice between leaving somebody alone or getting them to safety, and you were answering on a test, 100% of the people would say get the person to safety.
Yeah.
But this is across 10,000 suicide prevention trainings that people have gone through. 15% of the Air Force leaves them alone. 18% of the Army leaves them alone. 26% of the Navy leaves the guy alone. Well, what happened? And this is just when there's stressors, people's decision making can be faulty.
Hmm.
And when you ask the question about, well, what's next, this knowledge becomes very interesting in a number of ways. One, across organizations, this type of activity happens in clusters. So from a leader's perspective, a leader can be getting data around where do they have hotspots in their organization. And what we see is that there are consistent patterns for where those hotspots are. So that starts to become an incredibly powerful tool for leaders who might have a young battalion commander who needs some mentorship. And now you can have that conversation. Let's talk about what's going on with your people. And this is something where just that data unlocks the ability, because without that, you didn't have that visibility. The next thing is when you think about proficiency, and what's happening in virtual reality is people have the opportunity to demonstrate proficiency, whatever the skill set is. When you think about, you want to up level a large number of people, well, the first thing you've got to know is, where are they at today? Because if you don't have a baseline, you're not going to know what are going to be the best techniques for taking them up a level. So when you think about like what are the next things with virtual reality, there's the value of the data, the value that brings to leadership, but beyond that, the value of assessments. So you can get baselines of proficiency across large organizations very quickly, across a large number of different categories. And think about from a costs and time savings, what are you doing if you are teaching somebody something that they already know? They can already do the thing, but if you've got a requirement to teach it to them, there's an incredible amount of waste there that can get picked up. And I think when you think about virtual reality, what you've got is a more effective way to learn, but you also have a more efficient way to teach. And that's where, when you think about technology that unlocks accelerating performance, these are kind of the characteristics that can be really meaningful.
It's fascinating, and I love to learn more about this, and I'm curious too. Is there a way to blend in the like personality, the old Myers-Briggs test, for example, right? You're a learner of this type, with like, hey, we're gonna tweak the training, the scenario to is that a thing? I mean, do those things blend together at all, or is it like, no, it's kind of the training, and you need to figure it out no matter your personality type? Like, oh, hey, you're a learner, you learn this way, we're going to do it a little differently. I mean, is that a thing? I have no idea. I'm just
Yeah, no, I
curious.
mean what you're describing is really kind of on the cutting edge of what's happening in learning and training, um, and that these are what you're describing is uh, the goals of adaptive learning and learning engineering, and especially at the in the Air Force. So, Chief Learning Officer of AETC, Wendy Walsh, she talks about this a lot, and a lot of it is how do you kind of get that next level of performance through doing exactly what you're saying.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Again, we always talk about there's different, your visual learner or your oral learner or a tactile learner, and how do you make the training the most, effective for that person, instead of making it one size fits all. So that's fascinating stuff. I guess you can do I mean, in my head, like some kind of a pre-test to figure out the way you learn, and that would then reset the training. I don't know. I'm just it's awesome. I don't know. It's like making me make my hair hurt. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing is just the challenge of big organizations.
Yeah.
That how do you get the data to know where your people are really at? And this is where virtual reality starts to become something very fascinating. When you think about what's a Tesla doing when it's out driving around, it's got cameras. It's building a visual map of the world. And when with virtual reality, when people are in it and they're talking, it's building a behavioral map of an organization. And that the more fidelity you have to the map of your organization, the better decisions you can make.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a very, very valuable tool that way.
Is there a way, just leadership is, again, as a Marine, that's always something that I try to improve my leadership and understand from other leaders. And one of the things I certainly saw, I mean, in the Marine Corps, and then even in Amazon on the corporate side too, is, um, people have favorites, people have biases on the way they deal with other people. I would think there's a way to remove some of that in the assessments or in the VR world. But like, is there a way? I mean, I think, everybody gets evaluated theoretically and old school, with a fitness report in the Marine Corps, or with like standard end of year report at an Amazon. But is there a way you can look at that and like figure out how you're, like, to remove bias from this process? That has to be, that's always the thing. That's always a concern, right? Like, Is that something? I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that up, because you think about kind of where we are in this moment of time, and how do we build an organization that's meritocracy, and how are people elevated based on their proficiency with their weapon, whatever that their career field is. Well, this creates an objective record
Mm-hmm.
of, you either did the thing or you could not do the thing. The demonstration of competency is clear, and it's just like another one of these examples where technology can be a great tool for democratization.
No, I love that. I think it's certainly much needed because I mean, I think we all saw examples where you don't know why that person is, and it's personality. Like personalities are a factor whether you like it or not, and they can be good or bad. But there's also, you're right. It can be much more of a nepotistic world, vice a meritocracy. So I love to hear that this is something that can be utilized, that if done properly, certainly can be done to make that happen. How from a just kind of a little bit of a change of direction on the question. If you're a veteran, if you're a military member that wants to get involved in this field, I mean, is this something that the military is doing now? Again, I don't think there was an MOS for this in the military when I was in. Maybe there was, but if it was, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know it. I mean, are veterans doing this themselves? Is it all outsourced now? And what kind of the bigger question is like, how do you, if this is something you think is cool, how do you get there? I mean, how do you obviously did it and learned yourself because you were right there when it began. Didn't know there was no school to go to back then. What is the way to kind of get into this field these days?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, because we are living in an incredible time for opportunity. And the what we're doing in virtual reality is just a little slice of what's happening with startups and innovation. That everything that we've learned over the last few years, especially watching everything in Ukraine, and what the future of warfare is going to look like, and what the technology that's going to take us there is going to be. We all know that the future is going to be software led, not hardware led. And there are countless startups with incredible missions doing amazing things. And what these startups have is that they're very rich in ideas. They have a lot of very smart people, and they are very poor in leadership competency. And when I say that, I mean people who have actually had experience leading other people.
Mm-hmm.
In the corporate world, your career may be one where you're 15 years into your career, and you have graduated from being an individual contributor, and you now have the opportunity to graduate into management, and you get to have 2 direct reports. And management and leading people, and it's not a skill anybody's born with.
Yeah.
Like you get that from experience. And in the corporate world, there are very few opportunities to develop that experience. And then when you think about, well, what are you doing in the military? It's like you're leading people from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so people coming out, you've got decades of experience. Like that is invaluable. And so I mentioned this because there are countless startups, and this is an incredible time for, like, in the venture world, there's a lot of interest being put on defense tech, because we're in just a renaissance of technology providing value to the government in a way that it hadn't before. And that means a ton of opportunities at places where they are desperate for somebody who has experience in a chaotic environment,
Yeah.
has an experience being level-headed when things might not have gone as planned, has experience working with other people and leading teams. And I think this is something that one of the luckiest things for Moth and Flame is that because our technology has gotten adopted by the DoD, we've had the good fortune of having a bunch of vets join the company. And that has developed a backbone of discipline, a backbone of values that you just can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like you can't go out and buy that. You can't train,
Can't simulate that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And what's been really interesting to see is getting to see people uh, make that transition. And there's a lot of that is really hard. But I think when you are the person making that transition, it's easy to not see how much value other people see in you.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any advice um, that I have for people making that transition, it's be proud of what you've done. Tell people what you've done. Don't apologize for it, because I think one mistake that I see happen is coming out and trying to make the background look like it was a corporate experience.
Yeah.
And
Horrible.
and then the result is just muddy.
Yes.
It's like you can't tell what, and but that actually when you talk to the person and learn about what they did, the stuff they did is unbelievable.
Yeah, I see that all the time. Again, having been in the military recruiting space now for about 10 years, I'll occasionally get resumes and I can't even tell you're in the military. I'm like, I was the CEO of this, or I'm like managing partner. No, you weren't. You were the commanding officer. You were the staff NCO in charge. That's what I want to hear. And I think that veterans just have a very hard time translating their skills into civilian speak, but they do it. They make it so vanilla that they lose the goodness of what they have, because the skills they had, just the schools they attended, the leadership piece is so invaluable. And I think more and more, I mean, you made this point that I think more and more in the world we live in, there aren't those, it's not like there's steel plants out there. There are, but like relatively speaking, you're not leading a factory assembly line. A lot of it's automated, and you're on a screen, or you're watching a thing where it's not people. It's more an automated process where you don't have to deal with the people every day. Where the military, that's it. You have that's there's no other way except to deal with the people and to get that skill set that's so invaluable to any company, and how to translate that and make that resonate, because obviously most recruiters and most sourcers are not veterans and they don't know what that brings to the table. And certainly that's one of the things I think at the MilVet we try to do, is to highlight that, hey, in the private equity world, this is what we can do for you. We're going to only, our candidates are not only going to have an MBA, and they not only have worked on Wall Street and they've or worked at in a consulting, they also have this leadership piece on top of that, right? So when you can bring that to bear, it's a powerful thing. But I think it is hard for the veteran themselves to articulate that, and the company sometimes to understand that. But agreed, it's that is the sweet spot when you can make your case clear. People, oh wow, yeah, we want more of those. Yeah,
I'll give you an example of a technique that can be very, very effective, which is talking about your values in a job interview. Because, especially in startups, but there's the Mark Andreessen quote about culture will eat strategy for lunch. And it's something that every startup is looking for and desperate to build. And 99% out of 100, that person doing the hiring didn't list that on the job requirements.
Yeah.
And that when you come into the interview and that's something that you're bringing to the table, people can take notice.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden they've met a whole bunch of people that meet all the job requirements. And here's somebody they meet who's actually just bringing something incredible strategic value to the organization
Yep.
that they hadn't even thought that they needed. And that's just like an incredible asset that every single person coming out of the military has.
Yeah. No, I love that point. I talk about culture all the time because a lot of people can do the job. The job itself isn't necessarily what you should be hiring for. It's, are you going to be a fit in the team? Because, and that's also true. I mean, every company has a different culture. I mean, certainly all the services have a different culture. The Air Force is very different than Marine Corps, right? But Amazon's very different than J.P. Morgan, or there you have to understand that. I don't think we in the military, probably anyone, nobody ever talks about that ahead of time in the interview. Think, hey, make sure you're going to be a fit here, because if you're not, again, you can do the job, but you're not going to stick around for a long time if you're not fit in with the culture there. And understanding that and digging into that is huge. I agree. Yeah. Well, hey, I know we're coming up on time here. I'd love to kind of give you, the last few minutes. Like, how do people contact you at Moth and Flame? What do you want to leave with our audience? I mean, what can, where can the MilVet be helpful to you in getting the word out of what you're doing and how to engage?
Yeah. A couple things. So SkillBridge is an incredible program for anybody who is interested in getting into the startup world, coming out of their transition. And that's something where you can just look through the list of companies that are available. Moth and Flame is one of them, and then do a 6-month internship, and learn about, get something great on your resume, learn about civilian life through a new perspective. And then the thing that's something we've seen with virtual reality is that when people experience it in their unit or at their base, there's a light bulb that goes off.
Hmm.
And we have a program, we call it boot camps, and it's something where we'll come out for one day, bring a bunch of headsets. We can come out for a week, whatever that is, and people can just go through it and see it. And something that we've seen is champions at bases will be telling people about this, saying we need to get this, and it falls on deaf ears.
Yep.
And then those same people go through an experience and see it and say those words out loud and get that guy to safety, and they come out of it changed.
Yeah.
And so I'd encourage anybody who is looking to bring innovation into their organization to just reach out. We can bring people and share it with you and your organization, and you can see firsthand how powerful and revolutionary this technology really is.
That's awesome. No, I love that. And certainly I'm a huge SkillBridge advocate and a fan. So as you do post opportunities, let me know. I will help you find some great candidates. That I can do for you. And I may need to go check that training out, because I am way behind on this thing. I'd love to see it myself and get a better appreciation for what the applications are of VR these days and how Moth and Flame is making it happen. Well, hey, thank you so much for the time today, Kevin. Certainly have learned a ton from you. Love what you're doing and the impact you're making out there on the veteran community and beyond, and look forward to working with you in the future. So thanks again for the time.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate everything you're doing as well.
Hoorah.